everybody, welcome back to the show. I am Dr. Amoree Wild, and I am here with Dr. Faith Nelson again. And today we have a really great topic about food and nutrition and what foods are good for us and what foods are bad for us and why. So to start us off today, I have a great quote, and it's actually by Thomas Jefferson. And he said, "If people let government decide what food they eat and what medicine they take, their bodies will soon be in a sorry state, as are the souls of those who live under tyranny." So, again, that was Thomas Jefferson who said that. Dr. Faith, what do you think about that?
I think it's an amazing quote. I can't believe it was said so long ago, and yet it's a quote that most people don't know or even think about. You know, when we allow other people to control our food and what we're eating and thinking and learning about, then actually it's tyranny beginning. And I won't go on a soapbox, but I fully believe it. You know, those who control our food control us.
Absolutely. So going into food, nutrition, what is the number one food that you think everyone should take out?
The number one food I think everyone should take out would be processed sugar. Hands down, it's why when we did the class, for first class in January, it was on sugar. And it is the number one food that I think people need to take out. It is the hardest because it's so addictive. Most people in the United States, but I would even say not so much around the world, but definitely in the United States, it's an addiction that's acceptable. It's almost like if you don't eat sugar, you're the weird one or the one that's kind of odd. And so, but it is an addiction nonetheless. Mm-hmm. They found that it lights up the same parts of your brain as cocaine. And when given to mice, it was actually when they gave cocaine and sugar to mice, 9 out of 10 mice preferred the cocaine over, or preferred the sugar over the cocaine. And that tells me it's actually really addictive.
It is really addictive for sure. It's also hard to avoid, like when we have people come into our clinic and they go on a sugar detox and everything, we give them a list of like 75 different names of sugar. And so people think they're eating sugar-free when they're still eating high fructose corn syrup. And they're still eating aspartame or organic cane sugar, thinking that it's different.
Organic raw sugar, that's another one that gets people, oh yeah. We have a lot of people tell us that they don't eat it. And then when they start looking at their ingredients, they're really surprised at how much they are eating.
Yeah. So sugar is the main one, obviously. And I mean, sugar is bad for a lot of reasons. It's very inflammatory. It throws off hormones. And we've done a whole class and a whole video on sugar. But, you know, if there was a list of foods that you'd be like, if you took this out of your diet, you'd be healthier today, what would be on that list?
Well, sugar would be number one. But it is hard to take out because it's in everything. But a next one would probably be food dyes. Food dyes are really damaging to children and to adults as well. I know kids who have ADHD who get tremors when they have food dye. And I actually have a grandson that if he eats the blue food dye, he actually like just kind of goes crazy almost. Will hit his head against the wall. And as long as he doesn't have it, then he's just fine. So food dye is actually affects us more than we realize. There's been some food dyes that have been banned from makeup. So I tell people, if you can't put it on your skin, you probably shouldn't put it in your body. You know, if it's doing that to the outside of your body, imagine what it's doing to the inside of your body. So think about food dyes that way. Another one is probably gluten. I know it's kind of a big thing right now. Some people love gluten, and to take it out, it's really hard because it's their main staple. But most of the wheat and crops have been sprayed with glyphosate. And glyphosate is a cousin to Roundup. And 20 years ago, had you asked me, I wouldn't have had gluten on my list. I don't really have an issue with gluten in general. But when they're spraying this on our crops, then they're grinding it and we're eating it, it's actually making people sick. It's one of the reasons why you can go to other countries and eat their gluten and not get sick, but come here and eat ours and you are sick. And it's because they actually don't allow American flour into their countries. And so it's another big thing that a lot of people are having reactions to. It's causing a lot of inflammation, brain fog, just different IBS, different autoimmune diseases. And so a lot of times it isn't gluten that people are allergic to, but it's the glyphosates that they spray on it. And likewise, that's oats and different things like that. We buy oats that are sprouted because to sprout something, it has to be soaked. Most grains aren't soaked, they're just dried, ground, and you eat it. Another one would be corn. Corn is a really big one. I had no idea how bad corn was for people. Now, some people, corn on the cob is great, not an issue at all. But what a lot of people don't know, and I didn't know for years, I actually took out processed sugar and I took out gluten in my diet, and I actually had asked the natural doctor about corn, and he told me that corn was fine. And so most people replace gluten with corn. And if you're like me, I actually got better for a little bit, but then I got sick to where I got really sick. And we're not really sure if I developed a corn sensitivity at that time or if it was before then. But corn is definitely an allergy that I have. And what I've learned from studying it is that they used to take corn kernels, you know, the yellow part of the corn, grind it up, make the masa and high fructose corn syrup and corn starches and all these different things with it. But what they've started to do now, or recently, is they actually take the corn husk and they're actually grinding that and they're using that in those products. And it's actually cutting up the inside of people's stomachs, and it's causing leaky gut syndrome and a lot of other bowel issues. And it was actually what was making me really, really sick. It made it to where if I ate corn, I usually know it within about 10 to 15 minutes. I have to sit down, and for 3 days after eating corn, I have a hard time standing up. It makes me bloated and sick and just feel terrible. The hard thing about corn is it's in seasonings, like your taco seasonings and your ranch seasonings, and it's in so many things that it's hidden in, that corn is a really hard one to take out. I make a lot of my own seasonings, like taco seasonings, ranch seasonings, fajita seasonings, things like that from homemade, just because there's corn even in organic and natural products. And so it is a harder one to take out, but it is
baking powder, which you wouldn't think.
Yeah, baking powder.
It's baking powder.
Exactly.
And yeah, it's made with corn.
And so anyway, it's highly inflammatory. It is actually one of the it is the most inflammatory food out there for the majority of people. And so corn is actually a really big deal. Not a lot of people are talking about it, but it is an important one. Another one that I would probably take out would be soy. Soy isn't, well, let me rephrase this. If you are buying and eating fermented soy, then that's great. But a lot of people don't know the difference, and so they just think, oh, soy, it's a better alternative, I'll eat it. But what a lot of people don't realize is, like in our Oriental countries, they actually ferment the soy and then they eat it, and that changes the makeup of it. And when you change the makeup of it, then it makes it good for you. Like I eat fermented food. Fermented food's good for the digestive system, which is why the Oriental countries ferment it and then eat it, because it's good for the digestion. But if you're just buying soy in general, it's actually not very good for you. I know when I was a youth, the edamame beans, soybeans, were a big deal. What a lot of people don't realize is that it increases estrogen. So they were actually giving estrogen to their sons, and I think it's caused a lot of problems in our world today. So
And that's a big one because a lot of influencers will say protein powders are great, and protein powders are great, but a lot of them say that like plant-based is easier to be digested, but a lot of the plant-based is soy-based, and so you'll bulk up, but then you're gonna notice that you're almost starting to go backwards because you are giving yourself such high amounts of those phytoestrogens. And another problem with soy is when you don't ferment it, because of how it breaks down in your body, it actually inhibits your ability to break down other proteins.
Oh yeah.
And so you're breaking down all of this protein powder that has all this soy in it, but if you're eating that steak or chicken or anything like that, it's gonna have a hard time being broken down because of that soy.
Yeah. There are actually, talking about fermenting, there are a lot of people who sprout seeds and then grind and eat them. Those I think are great, like even wheat. I tell people if you have to eat bread, eat a sprouted grain or a homemade sourdough where they actually let it ferment for a couple of days before they baked it. And so because there is good qualities with fermentation.
Yeah.
So another one would be seed oils. You probably know a lot about seed oils. Your husband gets so sick if he eats seeds.
My husband for his whole life before we met, actually had really bad asthma. And once we started dating and put him on some cleanses, he didn't really struggle with asthma for a long time. And then we got these almond crackers that we thought were clean, and they had seed oils in them, and it activated his asthma almost immediately. And seed oils are highly, highly inflammatory. They're just a cheap oil that they can put in anything. It's very bad on the brain because your brain actually it absorbs more of the fat than anything else in your body. Seed oils, it's an oil, it's a fat. And so your brain tries to absorb it, but it's just absorbing these toxins. And so it's extremely bad for your brain, extremely inflammatory. It can cause asthma attacks, it can cause skin irritation and rashes. It's in a lot of your lip creams, your face creams, and it's hard to avoid.
It is. Fat-free is also another one that's really a big deal.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, they got on this kick about how we need to help people's hearts. Though, from what research I've done, there wasn't a ton of heart attacks. But they wanted to make everyone healthier, so they got on this fat-free kick. And the problem with fat-free is they took the fat out of the food and it made it taste like cardboard. And so then they increased the amount of sugar they put in the food so it could actually be palatable. And so fat-free is actually usually has high amounts of sugar in it. But fat in general is good for your brain. It does help to feed your brain, like you were just saying with the seed oils. We need good, healthy fats. Most people don't know what those are. Olives have good, healthy fats. Avocados, some nuts, most nuts have good, healthy fats. Avocado oil, olive oil, coconut oil. A lot of those have good, healthy fats, and they're good for you. They're good for your brain. Your brain needs that fat. And so to help just memory, brain function, things like that. And so it's really important to get a couple servings a day of good, healthy fats, not just bad fats, vegetable oils, seed oils, things like that.
Deep fried food.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that when you eat fat-free, it's gonna help you lose fat. And that is completely false. Your fat is actually, I wouldn't say it's not influenced by what you eat, because it definitely is, but going fat-free is not gonna cause you to burn fat.
Oh no.
What happens is your fat cells are actually storage plants. And so all of the toxins go into your fat cells to protect your body from absorbing those toxins. And so people people think, oh, I'm eating fat-free, that means my fat isn't going to grow. Well, that's not how that works at all. There's no correlation there.
No. Well, and a lot of people, when we get them eating how they should, they actually eat more but are losing weight. And some people actually call me because it makes them worried because they're eating so much more. And I'm like, no, your body has been storing fat because you haven't been feeding it food. We feed it chemicals. And it's worried that it doesn't know like when its next meal is going to come from. And so it stores that fat. And it isn't like you get more fat or less fat. It's the same amount of fat cells. It just grows or shrinks. But when you start to actually feed your body food, it's like, oh, I can let go of some of this. I don't need it, you know? And so it is why when we do our whole body cleanse, because we do put people on a specific diet, that a lot of people will lose 20 or 30 pounds during that cleanse. It's not something that we advertise because it's not why you're doing it. But they actually do, by eating real food, end up losing weight. So even though they're eating more.
Yeah, exactly.
So, one we haven't talked about is dairy. Dairy's kind of controversial.
It's very controversial, but see, why dairy, everyone assumes, is bad, and when you don't get good quality dairy, it is bad for you, is they started taking this dairy milk, and they, fresh from the cow, and they're like, oh, there's all of this bacteria, it's not safe to drink, so they cook the crap out of this milk, and then they put it on the shelf, and they sell it to you. Well, that kills all of the enzymes in it. It kills all of the good and bad bacteria. It just kills the milk. Like, you're just drinking white water at that point that has been so filtered, there's nothing left in it. That dairy is bad for you. But if you're getting fresh from the cow or you're getting A2 milk, there's actual enzymes in that milk that help you break down lactose, which is dairy milk. But there's also good bacteria, so it also feeds your gut bacteria to help you be able to digest food better.
Very true. I know a lot of people who are lactose intolerant, they don't realize that when they're drinking milk from the store, well, raw milk has an enzyme that breaks down lactose. And so when they get that milk from the store, it's lacking that enzymes to help their body to break it down. And a lot of times just by switching over to A2 milk, they're just fine, or even by going to raw milk, which is what we use in our house, is just fresh raw milk. There's a dairy not far from us, and we go there once a week to get our milk, and and then we make yogurt and cottage cheese and ice cream and stuff from that raw milk, and it doesn't make any of us sick. Several of my kids do have dairy sensitivities prior to having raw milk. So, meat's another controversial one, especially in the natural world.
A lot of people believe that, vegan vegetarianism is the best diet. One, it's not, in my opinion. You cannot get enough protein and nutrients from plants alone. Like, it is so hard, and our soil is so depleted of nutrients. You cannot eat enough to get the protein that you need. Now,
I would agree with you. 20 years ago, I might have disagreed with you. 20 years ago, I might have, but the problem is back in the 80s? Was when it was brought before Congress. I'll have to look up the study. Maybe I'll quote it in another one. But they actually brought before Congress that our soil was being depleted of nutrients, and our Congress did nothing about it. And since that time, it's only gotten worse and worse and worse. It's why sometimes I put people on just nettle. Sometimes when they come in, they're so
nutrient deficient.
Yeah, that I'm like, just take nettle and then we'll build from there. And they feel like 1,000 times better being on nettle. And it's because nettle has really deep roots. And so it gets more nutrients out of the soil than the other plants. And it's why they see such a big difference on just nettle. and that's not anything else, but they are very nutrient deficient. And so I do have to agree with you. 20 years ago, I might not have, but most people who go vegan go back around to meat. They talk about brain fog, the dark circles under their eyes, the belly from all the gluten and things like that they end up replacing it with. And so I really feel like, you shouldn't overdo. If you're eating a pound of bacon every morning for breakfast, it's probably a little too much.
Well, and there is good meat and there is bad meat.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It also, like the milk, it depends how it's processed. If you're eating salami and lunch meat, that
cheap bacon,
mm-hmm. Like that is not nutrient dense. That is bad for you, and that is going to cause a lot of health issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a lot of that is seasoned with corn and sugar and food dyes because it's been so processed it doesn't look like meat
loses its color. Yeah, it does.
And so even getting a good quality meat, like in our household, my brothers, my dad, everyone hunts, and so we have wild game, and so for us, meat is very clean. We process it ourselves. We don't even take it to the butcher. But if you're going to buy meat, it's important to get a good quality meat.
That is true. I would agree with that. And not to think that your lunch meats are going to do it, because they're so high in nitrates and other things that...
So many of the sulfates.
Yeah, I feel like they're more eating chemicals than protein at that time. And so...
Well, and they actually, for, like hot dogs and all of that, they have to put food dye in it to make it look like meat.
Yeah.
Because it's so heavily processed. And so, yes, that meat is not good for you, and it should be avoided. But a lot of your vegan options are also so heavily processed that they have to add food dyes and cornstarch, and they have to add sugar to make it palatable. And so it's not a healthy alternative.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, that takes us into probably the last one. The one, besides sugar and food dye, the other large, one of my other top 3 recommendations would be processed food. In general, it doesn't matter whether it's gluten-free, gluten-filled, fat-free, low-fat, healthy.
Comes in a package.
Yeah, you're eating chemicals. You're not eating food. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is they actually do honestly think they're eating healthy. But you're eating chemicals. You're not eating food. And trying to get people to understand that is a big deal. A lot of people don't understand it. They're like, oh, but these say organic, or this says gluten-free. And I'm like, doesn't really matter. If it comes in a container, it's been packaged, there's chemicals, is really what makes up that food.
There's preservatives in it, even if they say, oh, there's not. There is. I mean, if it has a shelf life, it has to have chemicals in it.
Yeah, my kids were amazed that when we made bread most of our kids' life growing up, and there's a couple of times where I bought a loaf of bread just because I didn't have time to make it. And that loaf of bread can sit on the counter for a long time before it molds. Or like lemon juice, if you've ever squeezed lemon and just put that in the fridge, it actually will start to mold. But the stuff in the grocery store, it does not mold. And so, you can do some experiments if you want to kind of see. But it's always interesting to me that when you have fresh foods, it does go bad, and people don't really realize that and see it. It's kind of crazy.
We go shopping every week because food goes bad when you eat real food.
Yeah, it does. There was actually an experiment done that I saw, that they had a plate of, they put butter, they put margarine, and then I wanted to say they put some other dairy.
Crisco or something.
Yeah. Anyway, and they left it out for the ants to come to. And the ants came and swarmed the butter and was eating that and didn't touch either one of the other two. And I think that just tells you that if animals won't eat that, you probably shouldn't either. And so, anyway, there's a quote, and I really like this. It's by Dr. Royal Lee back in 1951. So it was actually, this is a pretty old quote as well. It says, one of the biggest tragedies of human civilization is the precedence of chemical therapy over nutrition. It's the substitution of artificial therapy over natural, of poison over food, in which we are feeding people poison trying to correct the reaction of starvation. And I think that's really true. We're trying to help people not to starve. The government is subsidizing our food, which I think a lot of people don't realize. And with that, subsidies causes, they don't really subsidize fruits and vegetables, but they do subsidize hamburgers, and we are getting larger and larger and larger, but people are starving to death, even though they are large.
And they're full. Like, their tummies are full.
Mm-hmm.
But they are starving.
But they're not eating food, they're eating chemicals. And we keep giving them more chemicals trying to help starvation, and it's actually making the problem worse instead of better.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's being sold to them in different ways. Like, these are diet sodas, so they're better.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's all, at least in Idaho, there's all these soda shops. You know, all this diet soda, so it's so much better for you. And then you're putting like 12 squirts of syrup in it.
Yeah.
You know.
There is a lot of soda shops here in Idaho. So, all right, Amber, let's go to something positive. So, what can we eat? What should we focus on?
Like we said, good quality meat is fabulous.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't live without bread, a homemade sourdough, it really is, it's not that hard to make.
No.
We actually have a recipe board. It's called the Fiducia Way. They're great, like super quick, easy recipes to make homemade sourdough that's fermented. So all of the toxins are eaten out of the gluten. It's a great option. There's also sprouted wheat. You can buy sprouted wheat flour, or you can do it yourself. Like, it's not very difficult to.
Well, you can buy the bread too. I think it's in the freezer section.
Because again, it goes back.
It does go back. Yep.
Fruits and vegetables are great. I know there's a lot of influencers out there that say, "Oh, it doesn't matter once it leaves your mouth. It's all sugar. Grapes are not." That's actually not true, because yes, grapes are higher in sugar than some other fruits, but they're also high in fiber, and that fiber breaks down that sugar. So you might get a little bit of a spike, but it's going to come down and level itself out because it has everything in it that it needs to break itself down. And that's with all fruits and all vegetables. So they're a great option.
I don't like potatoes though, white potatoes. I would avoid white potatoes. Sweet potatoes actually help to balance blood sugar. And
I guess corn, if you consider that.
Yeah, corn too. But when I was experimenting, on myself, what spiked my blood sugar, white potatoes was one of the things that really spiked it high, and it did crash it. And there is some
a lot of people believe that it actually lowers testosterone in males as well.
That is true.
So,
that's what we learned in school, so I know.
So, obviously to avoid that, you don't really eat potatoes. And they're just a starch. There's not really
nutrients.
Yeah.
But I'd agree with you. I think the fewer hands the food touches and processes it goes through before you eat it is how I tell people. Processed once, it's probably still good, because meat, you want to cook it, you don't want to eat it raw. But when you start to get it processed 2, 3, 4 times, that's when it's really not what it started out as. It might be started out as corn, but it's going to end up as Cheerios. It's not.
It's been so processed, it's not the same thing.
No, it's not the same thing. And so eat food as close to what you would find it in nature is really what it is. And I feel like you can really eat anything, because I do agree, grapes or plums or things like that are high in sugar, but they do have the fiber to break it down, and they won't crash you. They might spike your blood sugar a little, but usually it comes back down and it doesn't drop it. And so that's an important thing for a lot of people, because there are so many people out there that are pre-diabetic at this time. And so you brought up protein. We buy a bone broth protein, and it's really good because bone broth is excellent. Um,
It's high in collagen, which is a huge fad right now. Everyone is telling you more collagen, more collagen.
mhm.
Well, you should be getting your collagen from a good source, and bone broth is like the best source to get your collagen from.
Yeah, and I know my daughter makes her own bone broth. I was going to ask her to post on Fiducia Way her recipe and how she makes it because it is really good. So a lot of those things are good. There's a lot of options. Nuts are great. Rice, I prefer either basmati if you cannot do brown rice, because basmati is very close to brown rice, or brown rice. But I don't really have an issue with rice. Rinse it before you cook it is my main thing. Rinse it well and then cook it. Oats, I usually tell people sprouted oats are going to be better. Quite a few stores carry sprouted oats right now, but again, they have been rinsed before they were packaged and sent off.
Or you can sprout them yourself. Like, again, grains are very easy to sprout. Like, it does not take a very long time.
Yeah, and sprouted vegetables and food, seeds are excellent for you. So is there anything else that some people ask about peanut butter? We buy the peanut butter that has the thick oil on top you got to stir in. Some people are worried that maybe still isn't good, so you could put a little colloidal silver in there when you eat it and stir it in, and then eat the peanut butter, and that's one way to make sure there's no anything in there has been killed.
There's no mold or anything in there.
Yeah, there's no mold or anything. But I think that's mostly it. So if you're gonna do juices, make sure maybe that you're doing them yourself, because a lot of fruit juices in the stores are high in sugar.
They're high in sugar, and the pulp and the fiber has been
taken out.
And so it will spike your blood sugar. It will be harder to break down, even if it is all natural, because it doesn't have that pulp, it doesn't have that fiber to break it down.
Yeah, and we'll do a class probably in the future about different recipes and things you can do like that, because a lot of people have a hard time with mayonnaise and ketchup and mustards. A lot of those condiments have sugar and corn syrup in them. Food dye, yeah. And so in the future we'll do a class about maybe some of the foods that we purchase and buy or use or we make to help you guys out there. But Hippocrates said, and I love this because when was Hippocrates alive?
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like, a long time ago.
He said that let food that be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And I think that's really important. We've gotten away from those basics that these people were amazing and they were smart and they were productive and they did all these things. Sometimes we think, we've progressed, we've gotten all this knowledge in the future. I don't think some of the knowledge in the future has really been beneficial to us. And so anyway, it's good to remember that let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. So, all right.
Thanks for joining us, and tune in for next week's episode.
All right.